I used to think that survival mode was something that you just go through during a hard season. But turns out it creates rules that you start living by without even knowing it. Today, we're walking through those unwritten rules because seeing them and unlearning them has been what helped me to finally get out of survival mode to realizing that I got to write new ones and start living. Real quick, let's unpack survival mode because it is quite the buzzword, which can get confusing. Survival mode is your body's built-in defense system for when there's a threat, and it treats a perceived threat the exact same way as a potential attack on your life. In survival mode, your body does not care about thriving, decluttering your home, living a soft life, making your dreams happen. Girl, please. It is only thinking about getting you through the day. When you feel threatened long enough, over time, it becomes your default for how you do life. There are 4 responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I found that each one leaves behind its own set of beliefs, or what I like to think of as a rule book. I realized that I have been living by that rule book for years without even knowing it. So let's go through them, talk about what they are, and how to start overcoming it, starting with fawn, because it is the one that we talk about the least, but so many of us find ourselves doing the most. Fawn says, if I make myself smaller, I'll be accepted. I'm pretty sure we don't always see this as survival because from the outside, it looks like being nice. You are selfless and helpful and flexible and all of these lovely things. But no, this is a person who feels very uncomfortable with disagreement to the point that it feels dangerous. So you protected yourself by becoming easier to accept. There are 2 rules in fawn. First, keep the peace at all costs. Because fawn teaches you that conflict is dangerous, peace becomes the highest goal, even if it is false peace. You will say yes when everything inside of you wants to say no, or you will just do whatever it takes to avoid conflict. So if you're new here, welcome. If you have been here for a while, you know that a whole segment of my niche is decluttering. And I often get the comment where someone will say, I want to declutter, but I live with someone who likes to keep everything. My response is, have you actually had that conversation? If the answer is no, why? You have pre-lived, pre-thought out that whole argument and gave up before even opening your mouth. That's fun. Avoiding the conflict that you haven't had yet because keeping the peace feels safer, but peace that requires you to completely abandon yourself and your values isn't peace. It's self-protection. The other rule is don't take up space. For women, our culture praises this one, and it calls it being low maintenance. We admire the woman who says, oh, I'm fine with whatever. But at some point, you have to ask, are you actually fine with whatever? Or have you just become afraid of having needs? Fawn teaches you to minimize yourself because fewer needs make you easier to keep around. So you don't ask for help. You let everyone else choose. You get incredibly skilled at reading everyone else's needs while letting your own get dismissed. For me, that showed up in my relationships. I am naturally an easygoing, chill person. Like that is how I was born. That has nothing to do with survival mode. But when my parents passed, that got exacerbated. And the very few people that I let in, I wanted to keep them close. And so I became even more so go with the flow and not testing any of the waters because I wanted to keep them there. It sounds kind of weird, but it actually kind of makes sense because that is how the brain is. Now being on the other side of that and having healthy relationships has shown me that making yourself smaller doesn't make your relationships healthier. It just makes you harder to see. So the action step for this week, if you have recognized yourself in fawn, here's what I want you to do. Ask for one thing that you would normally just go along with. Pick the restaurant. Say the honest answer instead of whatever is fine. Have the conversation that you have been pre-losing in your head. Just one. That's it. Fight. Fight says, if I stay in control, I'll be safe. When most people hear fight, they picture yelling or conflict of some sort, but the fight response is really about confronting threats. And a lot of the time, that shows up as control. If your first instinct is to take over, fix it, manage it, or make sure everything is handled, your nervous system has learned that if you stay on top of everything, you can probably keep yourself safe. There are 3 rules that I learned happen in fight mode. 1, I'm valuable when I'm useful. Productivity stopped being something that I did and became who I was. I would sit down to relax and my brain would immediately start listing out all of the things that I should be doing instead. My body would stop moving, but my mind just could not seem to get the memo. And it makes sense. In the hard season that I went through, I was the responsible one because I had to be. But the default became fear that things would fall apart if I wasn't doing. For you, it may look like being the one who fixes everyone else's problems or always volunteering and just generally overfunctioning. People call you dependable, but inside you are terrified of dropping the ball because somewhere deep inside of you believes that if you stop producing, you'll stop being worth something. But usefulness is something that you do. It was never meant to become the measure of who you are, which leads me to the next one. Rest has to be earned. I felt like I needed permission to stop, and productivity and output were the only things that granted that permission. That productivity gave me this proof that I was okay. For a lot of people here, it's rarely as simple as I'm tired, so I'll rest, but have I done enough today to deserve to stop? And the answer inside of survival mode is almost always no. You completely forget how to relax and how to be present. One of the biggest things that I had to learn here is that rest is not a reward for productivity. It is a part of it. And since it's a necessary part of life, you do not have to prove that you deserve it. If it isn't urgent, it doesn't matter. Survival mode has one priority: get through the day, which means that your brain starts to become incredible at handling emergencies, but not always at building a future. Urgency requires adrenaline with short, focused bursts of energy, whereas making a life that you want requires slow and steady consistency. Think about the goals that you've been putting off: getting healthier, decluttering your home. These usually do not feel like emergencies that you need to handle today. So survival mode files them under later. But the problem is that later usually becomes years. And I had to realize that if I wanted a different future, I could not keep letting urgency be the deciding factor of whether or not I did something. So here's your action step for the week. Rest for 10 minutes today, on purpose, before you have earned it, not after the list is done. Just stop and let that be enough. One thing that I've been learning over the past few years is that healing from survival mode isn't just changing what you believe, but it is building systems and doing things that allow you to enjoy life, challenge those defaults, and to stop reinforcing those old rules. Now, how you go about that is going to look different for everybody depending on your lifestyle. One place that we've been doing it is in our kitchen. There are only 2 of us, but I naturally grocery shop like I am feeding a family of 5. And even with the best of intentions and a list and all of the things, we end up with way more food than we can realistically eat. And because we both have a lot going on and want to be healthy and honestly just don't want to spend a lot of time cooking, we've been trying these different food and meal delivery options that just work for our lifestyle. So I was really excited when Factor reached out because I had heard so many good things about them. Factor is actually now owned by HelloFresh, which I have already shared how much I love them. So now I'm finally getting my hands on Factor. And y'all, the meals are so good. You get full, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door that have been crafted by chefs and check all the boxes. Dietitian approved, real ingredients, balanced macros, at least 2 veggies per meal, no planning, no prep, no cleanup. So sweet, which makes it really easy for me to stay on track with my health goals because if you haven't heard, America is really hot right now, and I really just don't want to turn on the oven for anything. They have all of this variety. They also have 70 other add-ons like green juices and energy bites. Today, I had this truffle butter chicken and mushroom risotto. We were literally like, yep, we will definitely be ordering more. So if you also want to try, head to factor75.com Or click the link below and use the code KristiFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code KRISTIFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Kristi FB50 at factor75.com. Now, this offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Flight. Flight says, if I can outrun it, it can't catch me. Flight is all about escape. It's not about being ready for the threat, but about never having to sit still with it. So if your instinct is to stay busy, stay prepared, avoid the lack, the loss, the not enough, the frustration, the overwhelm, this is likely your default because your goal is to never actually feel it catch up to you. Here are the rules. When in doubt, choose quantity over quality. This is about escaping uncertainty. Here, more is always better than better. I talked about this one in a previous video about spending, and it fits here too. If I had enough, a lot of enough, nothing could catch a girl off guard. So instead of risking having only the one thing or the smaller thing that I really wanted, I found myself settling for things where it was like, all right, it'll do, for the sole purpose of being able to have enough of it. Flight wants to know, if things go wrong, will this be enough? And so decluttering helped me to realize that where I thought I was creating this life and feeling of abundance, I was actually just creating reassurance. And so yes, I had more stuff, but I also had a whole lot less satisfaction, more to store, more to manage, more to eventually declutter and get rid of. And so it was temporarily helping me outrun this fear of not having enough. The next rule in flight is worry to prepare. Things are going good, life is flowing, but you can't help but run straight to the possibility of a bad future that hasn't even happened yet. So you don't celebrate too hard or get your hopes up. You think it's preparation, but actually it's preoccupation. There is a huge difference. Preparation says, I'm going to make a plan and I will trust that I can handle whatever happens. Preoccupation says, I need to mentally live through every possible disaster on repeat so that I'm not surprised. One of the hardest lessons that I had to learn is that peace doesn't come from predicting every outcome. It comes from believing that whatever happens, you'll be okay because God is going to be there too. Waste not, want not. This one sounds like being responsible human beings who are not wasteful. And while yes, that can be part of it, for a lot of people, this is less about being responsible and more about never letting yourself get close enough to lack to ever feel it again. Because the moment that you let something go, you have to trust that you're going to be okay without it. And that is terrifying. So you keep it just in case. That's why we hang on to things that we haven't used in years. The clothes, hobby supplies, the extra containers, because keeping it preserves possibility. If flight is your default, here's your action. Buy or keep just one thing that you love, not all 5. And instead of letting just in case make the decision for you, let it be, will this really be used and loved? Freeze. Freeze is the opposite of the other 3, where flight and fight and fawn are trying to do something about the threat. Freeze just stops. Freeze says, if I stop expecting more, I can't be disappointed. It may have tried controlling the situation and that didn't work. It tried to outrun it. That didn't work either. It tried to be invisible and still got disappointed. So the nervous system finally says, fine, I won't move. This is for my people whose first instinct is to wait, delay, numb, scroll, or tell yourself maybe someday without any real hope for someday. You lower the bar so far down that disappointment actually has to be trying real hard to find you. Here are the rules. Joy requires a reason. Freeze doesn't trust joy that just shows up. It needs a reason, proof that you have earned it, because anything that isn't directly helping you get through the day feels unnecessary, even frivolous. Can you just use the good dishes for takeout? Can you sit on the porch with your coffee without feeling like you should be doing something more? Can you order the appetizer or the guacamole if you're going to Chipotle just because you want it? Those seem like small questions, but they're revealing ones, because if joy always has to wait for a special occasion, eventually you realize that you have postponed most of your life. When I was deep in survival mode, when I thought of living rich, most of the things didn't have to do with expense. It had everything to do with giving myself permission to just enjoy ordinary life. Don't ask for too much. If wanting less means hurting less, eventually you stop wanting. Not because the desire for whatever the life you envisioned is gone, but because desire itself started to feel dangerous. Maybe you prayed for something that never came. Maybe you asked and were told no. So now, instead of dreaming freely, you start editing your dreams before anyone else has a chance to. You lower what it is that you are asking for and convince yourself that you didn't really want it anyway. You spend so many years trying not to be disappointed that you stop letting yourself imagine what's possible. Good enough is good enough. Freeze doesn't just teach you to expect less, it teaches you to accept less, because what if you raise the standard and lose everything? So you lower it. You keep people in your life who don't treat you with value and respect. You stay loyal to a job that drains you and doesn't pay you enough, but at least it's predictable. You keep the closet full of clothes that you don't even like because you don't see the point of upgrading. Over time, good enough becomes the ceiling that you never believe that you're allowed to break through. Freeze builds this life that's functional, but it's never full. Healing looked like asking myself a simple question. If I wasn't afraid to be disappointed, what would I actually want? So for my freeze girlies, your assignment this week is simple. Move. Make just one small movement toward the life that you have been postponing. Freeze loses its power the moment that you start moving again. The beautiful thing about all of this is that these are not personality traits. They are survival strategies, and survival strategies can be unlearned. Every single one of those rules made sense once, but protection that was designed for a season isn't supposed to become your permanent operating system. The real turning point for me wasn't just recognizing that the rules were there, but realizing that I got to write new ones. Because once I could see the rule book, I realized that I didn't have to keep living by it. So this week, I want you to pick just one rule you recognized in yourself today, and I want you to rewrite it. Instead of keep producing to be safe, decide I'm valuable, period. The rule is no longer stay small to stay accepted. No, I am allowed to take up space. Do not try to rewrite the whole rule book this week, just one. And if you're someone who wants a little bit more support while you do that, that's actually what we do inside the collective. And during the month of July, I'm running a Privileged Life Summer Challenge where we're practicing showing up for ourselves and getting out of survival mode every single day. You get a daily calendar and community posts to keep you consistent, a full digital guide to walk you through it, a group of women who are doing this alongside you instead of alone. Because unlearning these rules is a lot easier when you are not the only one rewriting them. I'll drop the link below if you want to join us. I hope that this helped you see something that you couldn't see before. If it did, go ahead and just let me know in the comments. Also, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? I'm gonna need you to jump on that. Alrighty, my friends, I love you so much, and I will see you in my next. Mwah. Bye for now.